In this chilling collection of 5 real-life stories, you'll hear about people who came dangerously close to death due to one absurd decision after another. These stories show that risky actions don't always pay off, and that there's a fine line between survival and tragedy. Sometimes one mistake is all it takes. Gabriel Moreno's bizarre and reckless actions on a California highway stunned authorities and the public alike. In an incident that seemed almost too outlandish to be real, he risked his life in pursuit of one thing: red wine. What began as an ordinary afternoon for a tanker truck driver hauling thousands of gallons of bulk wine quickly turned into a chaotic ordeal that would leave the road soaked in what could have filled thousands of bottles. Gabriel Moreno, a 39-year-old California resident, was not an employee of the trucking company, nor had any known connection to the vehicle he targeted that day. His background remains unclear, but on May 5, 2020, he set into motion an event that would become one of the strangest highway theft attempts in recent memory. Dressed in only his underwear and a face mask, he drove along Highway 99, trailing a Cherokee Freightlines tanker truck filled with red wine. His erratic actions soon raised alarms. As the truck continued its route, Gabriel signaled for it to pull over by flashing his hazard lights. Believing that there might be a mechanical issue with his vehicle, the driver complied, guiding the massive truck onto the shoulder of the highway. But as soon as the truck stopped, Gabriel made his move. He jumped out of his sedan wearing only his underwear and a face mask, opened his trunk for unknown reasons, and then sprinted towards the passenger side of the truck. His near-naked appearance and strange behavior startled the truck driver, who immediately decided to leave the scene, sensing that something was deeply wrong. But as the truck began to pull away, Gabriel was undeterred. In an astonishing demonstration of agility, the 39-year-old ran alongside the moving vehicle before leaping onto it. The driver, unaware that he was now carrying an unauthorized passenger, continued back onto the highway at freeway speeds. Meanwhile, Gabriel began a dangerous climb, maneuvering underneath the tanker while the truck was still in motion, and then he reached a valve positioned beneath the tank. What happened next left authorities baffled. As the truck continued northbound, Gabriel managed to unscrew the valve, releasing a steady stream of red wine onto the highway below. Positioned underneath the tanker, he began drinking directly from the gushing liquid as it poured over him. His actions were not only reckless but also life-threatening. Inside the cab, the driver remained oblivious to the unfolding scene beneath his vehicle until an instrument panel signaled that his cargo was rapidly depleting. Realizing something was wrong, he pulled over again and called the California Highway Patrol. When officers arrived, they discovered the aftermath of Gabriel's act: wine covering the road, a tanker rapidly losing its cargo, and a bizarre series of events captured on the truck's onboard cameras. Approximately 1,000 gallons of wine had been spilled, enough to fill about 5,000 bottles. The trucking company reported significant financial damage, and authorities classified the act as vandalism. Gabriel was later arrested and charged, his actions making little sense beyond a reckless pursuit of alcohol. Adding to the absurdity of the case, it was revealed that he was driving on a suspended license at the time of the incident. California Highway Patrol Officer Tom Olson, who reviewed the case, admitted that in his years of law enforcement he had encountered thousands of unusual calls, but this one stood out as among the most bizarre. Gabriel, clinging to the underside of a moving tanker, arms and legs sprawled as if making snow angels beneath the cascading wine, left a lasting impression. Gabriel's reckless actions endangered not only his own life, but also the safety of the truck driver and other motorists. In the end, the red wine that he so recklessly sought ended up wasted on the highway, and Gabriel Moreno found himself not with a drink in hand, but in handcuffs. A quiet evening in Modesto, California turned into a night of horror when a man, struggling to refuel his car, made a catastrophic mistake that left him engulfed in flames. What should have been a simple task spiraled into a life-altering tragedy in a Target parking lot. The man, identified only as being in his 30s, had run out of gas that night. He and his girlfriend found themselves with no proper container to transport fuel back to their vehicle. Rather than seeking assistance or a safer alternative, he decided to use a repurposed gallon-sized plastic water jug to carry the gasoline, despite the clear warnings posted on gas pumps against using improper containers. However, once he reached his vehicle, he encountered another problem. The car's safety valve, designed to prevent spillage and environmental hazards, made it difficult to pour the fuel directly from the jug into the tank. It was then that he made the decision that would nearly cost him his life. With no funnel on hand, the man attempted to create one himself by melting the mouth of the plastic jug with a lighter, hoping to reshape it into a more practical form. What he failed to consider was the highly volatile nature of gasoline. As a liquid, gasoline itself is not as immediately combustible, but its vapors are extremely flammable. Even the smallest spark can ignite an explosion in the presence of concentrated gasoline fumes. The moment the flame of his lighter came in contact with the jug, it triggered an instantaneous and violent reaction. The jug exploded in his hands. A fireball erupted, instantly engulfing the man's body in flames. The intense heat melted his clothing and even his shoes, searing through his skin. The force of the explosion spread the fire to a nearby Lexus, setting the vehicle ablaze. Overwhelmed by agony, he ran, but his every movement only fed the flames consuming him. Witnesses described a horrifying scene as the man, fully alight, staggered away from the burning car, screaming for help. Bystanders rushed to his aid, some using their own hands to smother the flames, while others searched desperately for anything to extinguish the fire. A Target employee managed to grab a fire extinguisher and put out the blaze on the burning vehicle. But for the man, the damage had already been done. The front half of his body, his face, chest, arms, and legs, had suffered third-degree burns. His injuries were severe enough that emergency responders prioritized ensuring his airway remained open, fearing that the burns might cause his throat to swell shut. Fire Battalion Chief Darren Jesberg later confirmed that his shoes had melted, a chilling detail. Paramedics worked quickly to stabilize him before airlifting him to the University of California Davis Medical Center's burn unit in Sacramento. With burns covering more than half of his body, his prognosis remained uncertain, but the severity of his injuries meant a long and painful road to recovery. The aftermath of the explosion left its mark on the scene. Scorched pavement, the charred remains of a car, and the lingering smell of burnt plastic and fuel were grim reminders of the night's events. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage to piece together the incident, but the cause was already clear: a dangerous misunderstanding of how gasoline behaves. Gasoline vapors are heavier than air, meaning they pool in low-lying areas and create an invisible danger zone. The man's attempt to use an open flame near such a volatile substance resulted in a predictable, yet devastating outcome. For those who witnessed the incident, the lesson was clear: gasoline is not to be handled carelessly, and safety measures exist for a reason. By 2014, Lance Lacrosse, a 29-year-old swamp tour guide from Marrero, Louisiana, had built a reputation on daring stunts with some of the most feared predators of the bayou. The father of three was no stranger to risk, but his livelihood depended on the thrill he provided to tourists eager for a close-up encounter with alligators. For years, he had waded into the murky waters outside the Jean Lafitte National Historical Park and Preserve, performing jaw-dropping feats that left his audience in awe. He teased the massive reptiles with an unnerving confidence that seemed to defy logic. His actions, recorded and shared widely online, drew both admiration and deep concern. On the day that would propel him further into the spotlight, Lacrosse led another tour for Airboat Adventures, the company that employed him. The swamp was alive with the humid buzz of summer. Tourists lined the edges of the boat, cameras in hand, anticipating yet another performance from the so-called alligator whisperer. With a casual bravado, Lacrosse slipped into the water, his every movement fearless. Two large alligators swam nearby, their prehistoric forms barely causing a ripple in the dark water. With a piece of chicken in one hand, he extended it toward the gators, who accepted the offering. Then, as the crowd murmured in excitement, he requested marshmallows to be thrown to him. He placed one between his lips and leaned forward as an alligator carefully plucked it from his mouth, an act so reckless it left spectators gasping. It was a show he had performed countless times, but despite appearances not without consequence or fear. Lacrosse himself admitted to the danger, confessing that every time he entered the water, fear was his companion. He understood the risks more than anyone. His close encounters had left him with nipped fingers, and he had once been chased back to the boat by a 10-foot alligator snapping inches from his heels. But his belief in control and quick reflexes and well-practiced techniques emboldened him. He kept his hand under their mouths to prevent a sudden bite, and he claimed he could judge their movements just right to close their jaws before they could lunge. Yet no amount of skill can truly erase the unpredictability of a wild animal. Videos of his antics spread rapidly online, drawing mixed reactions from the public and authorities alike. While some marveled at his fearlessness, others voiced concern over the ethics and legality of his actions. Feeding alligators was prohibited in Jefferson Parish, where his tour operated. Yet his videos depicted repeated instances of direct interaction, training the animals to associate humans with food. Wildlife officials reviewed the footage to determine whether any laws had been broken, emphasizing that feeding wild animals altered their natural behavior, making them more aggressive and potentially dangerous to people. The National Park Service weighed in, reminding the public that such interactions were highly discouraged. Feeding wild alligators not only put individuals like Lacrosse at risk, but also created a dangerous precedent for future encounters. Alligators conditioned to expect food from humans could become bolder, increasing the likelihood of attacks. Experts warned that while Lacrosse might have developed a technique to mitigate immediate harm, the long-term consequences of his actions extended beyond personal risk. Tourists who had witnessed his performances expressed a mix of amazement and apprehension. Some admitted to being captivated by the spectacle, while others, like one woman who had filmed his stunts, admitted she had feared for his safety the entire time. Another visitor described watching as multiple alligators circled him, their interest unmistakable. To the untrained eye, his ability to keep them at bay seemed almost supernatural. But those familiar with alligator behavior knew that the line between control and catastrophe was razor thin. Despite the growing controversy, Lacrosse remained steadfast in his methods. He insisted that he never disrespected the animals, never restrained or harmed them, only interacted with them in a way that he believed was built on understanding. But as the scrutiny intensified, So did the calls for intervention. Louisiana's laws may have been lenient, but with public safety at stake, officials were forced to consider whether performers like Lacrosse were blurring the line between entertainment and reckless endangerment. Though Lacrosse had survived countless encounters, the underlying reality of his performances remained unchanged. No matter how skilled, how fast, or how confident, humans are not exempt from nature's rules. Alligators are not pets, nor are they predictable. When severe thunderstorms swept through Bridgeport, Connecticut, on the evening of September 6, 2018, power outages left homes in darkness. Among those affected was a 30-year-old woman, a mother of two, who found herself searching for an alternative light source. Unaware of the hidden danger inside her home, she reached for what she thought was a candle, setting off a devastating accident that left her with catastrophic injuries. Earlier that evening, the woman and her family had ventured out in an attempt to purchase emergency lighting from a Home Depot store, but they found the store closed. With no other immediate options available, they returned home to endure the outage. Remembering that the previous homeowners had left behind what appeared to be candles in the basement, the woman went downstairs to retrieve them. Among the items stored away, she found what she believed to be a candle and took it upstairs to light it. Unbeknownst to her, the object she held was not a candle. As she ignited what she thought was a candle, a devastating explosion occurred. The candle was, in fact, a quarter stick of dynamite. The explosive device detonated almost immediately, unleashing a violent blast that tore through the home. The explosion caused extreme injuries to the woman's hands, including loss of multiple fingers, and inflicted severe trauma to her face. The force of the blast shattered at least one window in the house, and the sound echoed through the neighborhood, prompting neighbors to call 911. Emergency responders arrived at the scene within minutes. The woman's husband and children, who were inside the home at the time of the explosion, were unharmed, but they were shaken by the traumatic event. Paramedics rushed her to Bridgeport Hospital for initial treatment, before transferring her to Yale New Haven Hospital for specialized care. Her injuries were classified as severe, with medical professionals evaluating the extent of the damage to her hands and face. Firefighters and law enforcement officers conducted a thorough search of the home, discovering another explosive device similar to the one that had detonated. The Connecticut State Police bomb squad was called in to safely remove and later detonate the remaining dynamite. As a precaution, authorities also searched neighboring homes to ensure no additional explosives were present, but no further threats were found. The device involved in the explosion, commonly referred to as an M1000 firework or quarter stick of dynamite, is a powerful explosive that contains a substantial amount of pyrotechnic material. When ignited, it produces a rapid and intense combustion reaction, generating enough force to cause significant damage to structures and severe injuries to anyone nearby. Despite resembling a candle in shape, the presence of a fuse should have been an indicator of its true nature, though in the dim lighting of the basement, such a detail may have been overlooked. While Connecticut law strictly prohibits the possession of dynamite, fireworks, and similar explosive materials, investigators determined that the woman and her family had no prior knowledge of the hazardous items in their home. The dynamite was presumed to have been left behind by a previous homeowner, possibly years earlier. Due to the lack of criminal intent, no charges were filed against the family. Instead, officials classified the incident as a tragic accident, emphasizing the importance of proper emergency preparedness and awareness of hazardous materials in older homes. In the wake of the explosion, local authorities urged residents to invest in reliable backup lighting, such as flashlights or battery-powered lanterns, and to contact authorities immediately if they discovered any suspicious items that could pose a risk of explosion. The devastating accident left the woman facing a long and difficult recovery. Her injuries would require extensive medical treatment, rehabilitation, and adjustments to daily life. Her family, though physically unharmed, was left to cope with the emotional trauma of witnessing such a sudden and violent event. An 81-year-old man's attempt to lend a helping hand to a neighbor led to a harrowing rescue off the Welsh coast. The pensioner, a resident of Red Wharf Bay in North Wales, became the unlikely focus of a dramatic operation after high tides and strong winds swept him out to sea. On the day of the incident, unusually high tides and powerful winds had swept a neighbor's wheelie bin away from the foreshore of Red Wharf Bay. Seeing the bin floating in the water, the pensioner decided to take action. Living near the water, he was no stranger to the tides and the challenges they posed. However, on this occasion, he misjudged the weather conditions. Determined not to let the bin drift too far, he jumped into his rubber dinghy, a small, flimsy vessel, and paddled out into the rough waters, tethering the bin to his boat with a rope. His intent was simple: to retrieve the bin and bring it back to shore. But the forces of nature proved to be far stronger than he anticipated. As the man secured the wheelie bin, strong winds began to overpower his dinghy. The small boat was quickly pushed off course and began drifting further away from the coast. Despite the pensioner's best efforts, he found himself a mile offshore, helpless against the worsening weather. By the time he realized the severity of his situation, the situation had become critical. He contacted emergency services and dialed 999, alerting them to his distress. The Mulford lifeboat station was immediately notified, and a rescue team was dispatched to his location. The lifeboat crew, familiar with a wide range of emergencies, arrived at the scene to find the pensioner's dinghy filling with water. The sea conditions had taken a toll, and the man, who was not wearing a life jacket or any waterproof clothing, was at serious risk. He was visibly cold and disoriented, suffering from mild hypothermia. The lifeboat crew quickly pulled him from the water, transporting him safely to the shore. Once on land, the man was treated for hypothermia, his condition deemed mild but requiring attention. He was then taken to Isbiti Gwynedd in Bangor for further evaluation and care. Meanwhile, the lifeboat crew returned to the sea to recover both the dinghy and the wheelie bin, which was still half full of rubbish when they retrieved it. The bizarre nature of the rescue, with the crew toting in a discarded bin along with the stranded pensioner, left even the seasoned lifeboat crew members with a sense of disbelief. The rescue operation became a unique addition to the history of the Mulford lifeboat station. Dave Massey, a spokesperson for the station, remarked that the lifeboat crews had been involved in countless rescues over the years, but none quite as unusual as this. While it was an unconventional mission, the rescue operation was a testament to the risks that can arise in seemingly ordinary circumstances. The incident raised questions about the pensioner's decision to venture out into such rough waters without the proper safety equipment. Authorities noted that it was unwise to attempt such a task in those conditions, a sentiment echoed by the Coast Guard and the lifeboat station crew. Despite the risks, the pensioner's determination to recover the bin, a small but significant piece of his neighbor's property, demonstrated a remarkable sense of responsibility. In the aftermath, rescue served as both a reminder of the unpredictable dangers posed by the sea and the importance of being prepared in such unpredictable environments. The pensioner's quick thinking to call for help likely saved his life, but his miscalculation in not using a life vest or waterproofs could have resulted in a far more tragic outcome.